Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another video. In my last video, I mentioned that I had bought a Golf GTI from Japan. And in this video, we're going to talk a little bit about why I'm doing that and the process that you go through when you buy a car from Japan. I did record this video yesterday when I was out at walk, but I missed lots of things. I waffled on quite a bit. So I've taken some notes here just to make sure I don't forget anything and also keep on track and not waffle on too much. So I apologise if I look at the screen more than I look at the camera during this video. So why am I buying a Golf from Japan? Well, I have been looking at for some time for a Golf GTI, a Mark 5 or a Mark 6. I did buy a Mark 5 Golf GTI last year. I ended up having to take it back to the person I bought it from. And although there are a lot of them for sale in the UK, many of them are modified, and I was quite keen on getting a standard example. They're either high on miles or they've had some sort of poor maintenance. While there are good examples in the UK that are in good condition and have been looked after, they do hold a premium, and quite rightly so. If people are looking after their car, they're going to want top dollar for that. Someone had mentioned to me that they had imported two Golfs from Japan, and that piqued my interest. And a couple of pieces of information that around about that. The Golfs that are sold in Japan, so the ones that are sold in the Japanese domestic market, so it's a JDM Golf, if you will. Those are manufactured in Germany, just the same as all the ones that you get over here in the UK and in Europe. The key difference is that the speedometer is in kilometers an hour, and the odometer's in kilometers rather than miles and miles per hour. And the radio in the car is set up for Japanese frequencies rather than European ones. Both of those are things that are fairly easy to address within the Mark 6 Golf. Using software, you can change the odometer to miles, and you can enable a digital speedometer. But even changing the dial is a fairly easy thing to do as well. And the radio, I would be changing the radio anyway. So had I bought one in the UK, I'd be removing the radio to fit one with Apple CarPlay compatibility in it. So one of the benefits of buying a Golf in Japan, the ones over there tend to be quite well spec'd in terms of equipment that come with the car. There are lots of unmodified examples. There are modified ones, but there are lots of unmodified examples available as well. And there's also a lot of examples with low mileage. Now, I was keen to get one with low mileage. And to be clear, that's low mileage, not low mileage for the age, but low mileage in general. The other couple of things are that the roads aren't really salted consistently throughout Japan. And there's a lot of examples out there that have no rust. And a lot of the examples in the UK have rust, especially around the wings and the kind of quarter panel arches. And last of all, the price. The cost of the car itself seems really, really low. It increases quite a bit when you add in all the other fees, which we'll talk through in a second. But even then, you still save a lot of money. And I'll provide some transparency into what I'm spending to get my car. So the car that I've bought, a little bit of more information around about that. The one that I've bought is a 2010 Golf GTI. It's a 5-door model in candy white. It has the DSG gearbox with the flappy paddles. It's got 24,500 miles on the clock. Bi-xenon headlights. It's got LED rear taillights. It's got the multifunction steering wheel, and it has cruise control as well. So that's a fairly well-spec'd example for the UK. So how do you actually go about importing a car from Japan? Now, it's something that I've had no experience in doing before, and there are two ways to go about it. One is that you can do it all solo on your own. The other option is that you can use an agent. Now, given I have no experience in this area, I used an agent, so all I'm going to talk about now is the experience that I've had by using an agent. If you have no experience in doing this, I would recommend using an agent as well. There are agents in the UK, throughout Europe, and in Japan. And the cost of the agent that I'm using is around about £500. Now, what do you get for that £500? What is it that they're going to do for me? And I've created a list here, so I'll just go through those things so that you know what those things are. So the first thing that they do is they help you find a car that you want, and that could be at various auction houses throughout Japan. they give you advice on the price. So if you see a car that you like, they can give you a rough indication as to what they sell for at auction and whether the bid that you're going to place is likely to be successful at all. Um, the auction sheets for every car that's in Japan, and I'll put a picture of one up on the video here. The auction sheets are all in Japanese. Well, makes sense that they're in Japan. Um, the auction sheets are very consistent. The format that all the auction houses uses is the same. So regardless what auction house you go, the good chance is the auction sheet itself will be very consistent. So it rates the condition of the interior and exterior in a certain way. It captures any damage, whether the car's been repaired. Anyway, the agent will take that and they'll translate that for you, give you some feedback as to whether it's a good car to go for or not. The one thing I would call out as well, and we'll come back to this in a second, is that the auction houses, how they grade a car can be very inconsistent. One auction house might grade a car at a 3.5, whereas the other one grades a car at a 4. And the best way of managing that is by getting an inspection. So you can have someone physically go out to the car itself at the auction house and they can give you an inspection on that. So they might say to you that one car has been rated at a 3, but it's really a 3.5. Or it could go the other way about as well. So having a physical inspection is something that the agent can organise for you and they can give you information on that as well. The agent will place bids for you on a car, so when you find a car that you want to go ahead and bid on, they'll do that for you. And then if you do win a car, they do all the administration that comes with that as well. So they'll make the payment for the car, they'll organise the shipping, they'll get the car transported to the dock. And that £500 that gets paid at the end, so you don't have to pay that up front. That gets added on at the end when you've won a car itself. So let's assume now that you've been working with your agent and they've found a car that you're interested in. The next two things I would recommend you do is a history check. That's kind of similar to an HPI check in the UK. Takes a look at registration documents, auction history, all that good stuff. The price of that varies depending on how deep you want to go. I also run mine through a VIN decoder. So it was a company in Europe where you can put the VIN of the car in. So the VIN, the vehicle identification number, that's on the auction sheet. You can put that into some history checks. There's one I think it's in Lithuania called Car Vertical. You can put that in there and it decodes the Volkswagen VIN for you, so it gives you all the optional extras and stuff that were in the car. So that was how I was able to validate that all the equipment and specifications of my car are, as it came with when it was manufactured, which, was 13 years ago. The next thing you'll maybe want to consider doing is an inspection. Now, my personal opinion is that if you're seriously thinking of going through this process, you should go for the inspection. For me, it cost around £20. The inspection is when someone physically goes to the car at the auction house and they'll take a look at it and they'll give you a written report of that car's condition, also by comparing it to the auction sheet. Again, I've taken a list of things here, but for that £20, this is what the inspection covered for my car. So they checked the bodywork and they confirmed it was as per the auction sheet. They checked alloy wheels, the condition of the tyres, the condition of the interior. They checked the service history with the book that's in the car. They start the car, run up to temperature. They confirmed that the car wasn't smoking and that the car was running nice and smooth. There was no vibrations coming from it at all. They confirmed that there was no warning lights. There was no leaking fluids under the car, so no coolant or oil leaks, no fuel leaks. They checked the bushes were all nice and tight, and they checked that the CV joints weren't bust on the car either, and there was no leaking grease. They checked the condition of the oil and coolant and said it was within tolerance. They checked that the suspension was dampening as expected, and the suspension struts were not leaking, and the springs weren't broken. They also checked that the windows and the mirrors were working, the electric windows and electric mirrors were working, and that they weren't damaged. And they also checked that the power steering was working okay. So that's what that £20 covers you. It's almost like an MOT, if you will. They get around and check the car out and give it a clean bill of health. So mine's came back all good. The only negative comment on my inspection, just an FYI, was that the headlining was sagging a little bit, but I already knew that because it was on the auction sheet, which the agent had translated for me. So that's the benefit of doing that. Now, let's say you do both of those things and the result's pretty positive, and that's what happened with me. I decided that at that point I want to go and place a bid. Now, When you're ready to place a bid, that's when you have to make the first payment to Japan. You have to pay a bid deposit, because what they're not going to do is bid on a car for you and then you win it and you don't pay anything. So you have to pay a bid deposit. Now for me that was £350, give or take, is what I paid them. I think it was £358 in total. So that's what I paid as a bid deposit. Now if I win the car, that comes off the price of it. If I didn't win the car, they can either refund that for me or hang on to it for the next one. Now you just leave it with them at that point. They'll make a bid, and then hopefully you'll win it, or maybe you won't win it. But either way, let's assume that you win the car. Now, when I had won the Golf, um, the next thing you have to do is pay for the car and everything else that comes with that. Okay, so the things you have to pay for, you have to pay for the car itself. It's a fairly obvious one. Now, what you win the car for is going to seem quite low. Before you go ahead with this process, you have to really consider all the fees. So maybe by watching a video like this one or someone else's, it'll help you understand all the things you have to pay for. So you're going to have to pay for the car. You have to pay for the inspection that you had done, so it was around £20. You pay for transportation to get the car from the auction house to the dock. You have to pay for your freight and the freight insurance as well. You have to pay the agent fee that I mentioned at the start, which is around about £500. You have to pay an auction fee as well to the auction house. And then you have to pay export charges as well, to export and deregister the car in Japan. So you make that payment, that's everything you've paid for. That's now the car's in Japan. There was one additional fee I had to pay, which I'll mention in just a second. You pay all that money. What happens then is the car gets transported to the dock. Now, when the car gets transported to the dock, they take more pictures of it for you, because that's them done with it. Essentially, they take the car to the dock, and it's now within the hands of the shipping company. When the car gets taken to the dock, they take lots of pictures of it. Now, the pictures they sent me were much higher quality than those at the auction itself. So what I'm going to pop on the screen just now is a picture of the car, maybe put a couple of pictures up. This is what the car looked like at the auction. When I had the inspection done, they didn't take pictures of it. I think you can pay extra for that. I decided not to. I was quite happy that if the car was as described on the auction sheet, then that was fine. Anyway, you can see the quality of the picture that you get when you bid on a car. Now, when they take the car to the dock and take pictures, the photos are slightly higher quality, so I'll put those up now, so you can see the quality of the car is the quality of the pictures is better. You get a better look at the condition of the car. And yeah, I was really satisfied when I received these, because I could see that the outside of the car was near immaculate. And they took some pictures underneath the car as well, which will include, that show that there's no rust or corrosion or stuff in there. And it's just interesting to me that I've got a car that's 13 years old, and underneath it's in fantastic condition. So I was really happy at this point. Now what happens now is that they get it booked onto a boat, and that gets transported over to the UK. So that's where I am in the process right now. So the car, I won the car at the start of December, okay? And that's it now, just getting ready to get put onto a boat. So it should be leaving next Friday, which is the 17th of February, I think. So next Friday, 17th of February, it should be leaving the dock in Japan. And it's expected to arrive in the UK on the 29th of March. Now, there was a small fee I had to pay. I think that they hoped that the car had been shipped sooner than it was. So there was an additional storage fee I had to pay for the car to sit at the dock a little bit longer than planned. And that was about £70, which I paid to them last week. All right, so now that's where I am in the process. What's going to happen is I'll wait for confirmation that the car's on the boat. They will send me an export certificate, which I need to use for the next part of the process. And then I'm just going to start tracking the boat online. They sent me the information on the ship that they're going to use, so I can track it through Vessel Finder. So I look forward to doing that part of the process. So when the car arrives in the UK, what happens next? Well, you need to spend a little bit more money. When it arrives in the UK, you have to pay a terminal handling fee. I think it's between £80 and £100. So there's a terminal handling fee to pay. you have to pay a customs clearance fee of £75. You then have to pay duty. The duty is 10% of the cost of the car and the freight. Then you have to pay tax, and the tax is 20% of the duty, the car, and the freight. Now, if I take an example, let's say that the car sold for £3,000 and the shipping was £1,000. Well, that means that when it arrives in the UK, I would have to spend £1,455. So that's how much that would cost. So that's an expensive bill when it comes back into the UK. When you've paid that, the car's free to leave the dock. So mine is getting shipped to Newcastle. So that means it can be taken out of the dock. But as the car is not registered in the UK, it doesn't have an MOT certificate, it's not taxed, it can't be driven on the roads. So you have to pay or arrange transportation to get that car home. So to get my car transported from Newcastle up to Glasgow or Paisley, where I am, I'm getting quotes between £250 and £300. There were some slightly cheaper quotes, but those quotes between £250 and £300 were people with good history and good experience through Shipley.com. So that's something else we have to pay for. So then when the car comes home, that's going to be an exciting time. So when that happens, I'll likely upload a video again to my YouTube channel, just showing what the car's like when it arrives for the first time. So the first thing to call out is that you need to have some sort of driveway or off-road parking, because the car's not taxed, it can't go on the main road. Or you take a risk, I'm sure some people are quite happy taking a risk with that one. But anyway, it has to get put onto the driveway or some sort of off-road parking. It then needs to have an MOT for the next part of the process. So what I'm going to do is insure the car on the VIN number. You then pre-book an MOT, and you can drive it to an MOT station for a pre-booked MOT. So take the car for an MOT, hope it passes, then bring it back home. And I'll just use a local MOT station for that. There is a Volkswagen specialist not far from me, so I'm likely going to take it there, have the MOT done, and also just get them to give the car a bit of a once over and make sure they're happy with the condition of it. Once you get the MOT certificate completed, you're kind of near the end of the process, you have to complete the registration form for the DVLA. And send that off to the DVLA with the MOT certificate, and you also have to pay for some tax up front as well. The registration form fee is about £50 to £70. I can't remember the exact amount, but that's the kind of final things you have to pay for there. Send that off to the DVLA, and then they'll send back the V5C. The car will have a registration number. You can get some plates made, stick that on it, insure the car, and then it's good to go. That's the end of the process. As I said, they think it's going to take between 6 and 8 weeks to get the V5C back from the DVLA. So realistically, I'm going to have the car on the road towards the end of April, the middle of April at the moment. So that's kind of what that's looking like just now. So a couple of the negatives, just that I've kept in mind, is that the sagging headlining that my car's got. I'd mentioned that. A lot of them have that. So a lot of the Golfs that I looked at and I had them translate for me had sagging headlining on them. So I think I don't know if that's a Volkswagen thing or just a Japanese thing. I think the country's a lot more humid than the UK, so that's probably the reason for that. So I'm going to get the headlining retrimmed when it arrives. The other thing was that a lot of people smoking in Japan, and they smoke in their cars as well. And I noticed that my car, and you might have seen this in the pictures as well, has wind deflectors on it. So I'm going to assume that my car has been smoked in. Something that I don't smoke. I don't like smoking, so that's a bit of an issue for me. So when the car arrives in my driveway, one of the first things I'll be doing is stripping the seats out and giving the interior a really good detail clean. I've also got a couple of small modifications for the car. So I've bought a Volkswagen RCD 330 head unit with the rear USB mod. So I'll have an Apple CarPlay and Android Auto compatible head unit in the car. And I've also bought another small thing, which is it's a Volkswagen Passat climate control unit. So obviously the Golf GTI has climate control, but the Volkswagen Passat has climate control with little digital screens that look really nice. So I've bought them and I'm going to fit those to the car too. Okay, I think it's time for me to wrap this video up. The dog's starting to bark in the background there. Let me know what you think of this video. Was it helpful? Any questions or comments that you have? If you have been through this process yourself, I'd be interested to hear how that experience went for you. Is there something that I've got wrong here? Feel free to comment below and correct me. If you're interested to hear what happens next, what the car looks like as it arrives, feel free to subscribe to the channel and I'll keep you informed. Thanks for sticking with me and thanks for watching. Bye bye.